Hello and welcome to Stretford, Paddock. This is the preview for Manchester United against Luton Town in the Carabao Cup third round. What a tie we've got ahead of us. I'm joined by Casey and by Alex. How you doing, lads?
Fantastic. I'm so excited for the Luton game.
You excited? Why are you not excited? It's a chance of redemption. United have started the season like a big bag of bricks thrown into a bridge, off a bridge or something. I don't know. Casey, we need to start seeing something from this team, don't we? I know it's only one game in, but there was already an air of distrust and annoyance amongst the Manchester United fans of this season. And we've started against Crystal Palace, but obviously we'll move on to the Luton game soon, about as badly as we could have possibly hoped.
Well, we lost to Luton. Where we start? We lost to Palace last season in a similar way that we lost this season. And also, if you kind of take it into account with a pinch of salt, we had that friendly against Villa, which we lost. That was behind closed doors. We lost that 1-0.
What are you doing here, Casey? I said we need some positive
vibes. And you just
you're going through every single game we've lost in the last 12 months.
Okay. So we've had those two games. But the game against Luton is a chance for us to play a semi-strong team, not completely strong team, because all that we need to get some match fitness going and everything, and get back to where we need to be. Like have a couple of games in the running. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that. Obviously, Luton they're one of those sides that are deceptively high in the football pyramid.
Yeah.
Do you think Luton, what are they, Conference or sort of League Two? They're third in the Championship. They're a proper good side. They've won both of their opening games so far this season. They're a good team on good form. So I think there's a little bit to be worried about. Let's talk a bit about United, Alex.
Go on.
We saw on Saturday that United are clearly struggling in terms of, I think, mentally as much as anything. We saw Luke Shaw come out in a quite surprising interview after the game saying we need more players, which is very rare to see.
Especially as he's the one that needs replacing as well.
Well, one of the ones that may need replacing.
Yeah.
But we saw him come out. We saw Solskjaer again come out and say we need more players. There's clearly, discontent amongst United fans, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But obviously, at the risk of sounding overdramatic here, how highly would you rate this game in terms of must-win games to start the season off?
I think the one thing that United need to do is win a trophy. I think that's what we wanted last season. Getting to 3 semi-finals was good. And it was kind of, look, we did okay, finished third, 3 semi-finals. It was an okay season.
Yeah.
Probably the bare minimum we were expecting. But I think this team now needs a trophy. And for as much as this is 2 games into what feels like pre-season because we haven't had one. It is a must-win because if you go out of this cup straight away, it's one of our very realistic chances of winning a trophy. Because, to be honest, starting in the Premier League, it's not looking like we're going to win that.
No.
Champions League is absolute pie.
How dare you say we're not going to win the Premier League? It's been one game. Heretic.
Absolute pie in the sky we're going to win the Champions League as well, for as much as it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So, realistically, the trophies we've got this season, I've seen a very, very sad Stephen Howson in the back.
He's upset because we're not going to win the Champions League and the Premier League.
The FA Cup and the League Cup are our 2 biggest chances at winning silverware. So I think that for as much as we need to rotate the squad, I think we need to take this game very seriously and make sure that we get through to the next round.
Yeah. Alex mentioned obviously silverware. This tournament, I think it has been confirmed that there will be no 2-legged ties in the semi-final. And is it usually quarter-final as well?
Just
semi-final. But this season it will be all single-legged ties. And we saw last season United, we beat City in the second leg of that semi-final. Obviously we got pretty battered in the first leg. But do you think that favours Manchester United going into this tournament, knowing that, I say tournament, cup, do you think that favours us knowing that we only have to win one time against any given team?
I mean, the League Cup's always a weird one because you see earlier on in the games, like we've seen already, that Premier League teams always get a game given to them, and a lot of them go out early on, and then you always have that one shock result, which is dependent. I think in terms of trophies that we could win this season, I don't particularly mind if we go out early on in this because.
Oh, for God's sake!
But let me put it this way: we're going to have loads of fixtures coming up, that are back to back and stuff, and like throwing the other fixtures in there, I'm not really sure.
But the thing
what would you rather do? Get to a quarterfinals of a Champions League or win the League Cup this season? Because that's it's for as much as we need to prioritise the Champions League and we need to get through the group stage and we need to do all that. This is the trophy we should be winning. City do it every year. City just come out, put their second strength, which is as good as most teams' first strength team, and win it. And it gives them, we get to March and everyone goes, there's a trophy. You've seen it under Mourinho. We won that trophy in March and it gave that team a little bit of a boost towards the end of the season. We were never getting top 4, but there was always, do you know what? At least we've got some silverware. First silverware since Fergie. Whereas if we got this, it would be, this is the first silverware under Ollie, which would be a huge thing. And I think that we have to take this very, very seriously.
Yeah, I agree. And also, what do you think then? Obviously, winning this tournament isn't like, we've won the Carling Cup or Carabao Cup. This is the greatest day in our history. But if we lose to Luton,
that's a good point.
That will be horrific.
That is a good point. Maybe
I think
a couple
of the
of
mood when we went through against Rochdale last year.
We
went through against Rochdale on penalties.
That was so fun.
And everyone was like, that's it. It's all over. It's finished.
Everyone was like Ollie Solskjaer came around and pooed in everyone's pants.
Maybe a few games. The game against Luton is going to be big in terms of we need to rotate the squad. We need to not put out our first string squad. We're going to go into the squads and talk about who we are going to have in. But it's a good chance to get the fitness back. It's a good chance to try and get a win under the belt early on and then probably progress further on. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting match. I think obviously we're going to see players that we probably wouldn't see in other matches. We might see players playing in different positions, that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't want another MK Dons. That's the testament of things I don't want to see.
We will come on to our predicted 11s in a minute. Get your we've got a poll on the Facebook group that says, will Manchester United beat Luton Town? And unbelievably, I say unbelievably, 25% of you aren't sure, and another 19 say no. So
that's really
it's only
worrying.
55% in terms of confidence.
Luton.
Again, Luton do have a sort of I think in your head they're a worse team than they are, so they shouldn't be underestimated. But only 55% of you currently think that Manchester United will beat Luton Town. Head over to the Facebook and fill that poll in if you want to get featured on that. But we'll come to some comments in a minute. But before we do that, we're going to be moving on to our starting 11 soon. But there's a few players I wanted to sort of have a look at first, because Marcus Rashford in particular is one. He's on the thumbnail. We spoke about him against Crystal Palace. He's looked a little bit out of sorts for a while now. Are you expecting to see him? Are you expecting him to have a rest? Or what do you think of Marcus Rashford? Because for me, he was such a bright spark for so much of last season, but he just doesn't seem to have captured that form again since we sort of came back from lockdown.
I'm not expecting to see him. I kind of hope he doesn't play. I think that he needs rest more than anything. I don't think it's a case of he needs minutes to get this form back. I think he needs a rest. He needs to get back fully fit. He needs 7 days in between a game, which he didn't get. And he came back at the end of last season, and
he still got plenty of assists and a few goals as well. I don't think he was bad.
Man of the match performance against Crystal Palace at the end of last season, very, very good performance. But I don't think he's fully recovered from breaking his back. And I think that giving 7 days off in the week for Marcus Rashford would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. there. Let's move on to our predicted 11s then. Casey, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I've got mine ready.
Let's bring them up on the screen there.
Bring them up on the screen. So I've started with Dean Henderson in net. I hope that Dean Henderson, obviously, he's now taken the place from Romero. I'm assuming, so he probably will end up being our cup goalkeeper. I want to see Wan-Bissaka back in at right back. Harry Maguire, I think, should play. I think he needs to kind of stay stable, especially with that after that loss. But I want to see Ted and Mengi in next to him. Lindelof, for me, I've given him so many chances in my head, and I've been like, maybe he'll be fine. We don't concede that many goals. We haven't had any clean sheets, but he wound me up. Against Brighton, every goal was his fault. Like, I feel like it was just one of those situations where I just couldn't be bothered. Left back, Brandon Williams, give Shaw a bit of a rest. Midfielders, I've gone from McTominay and then Fernandes in the 6. I want to see what happens there, because obviously, as you've seen now, my number 10 has been Donny van der Beek. I want to see Donny further forward. I thought he played well in that game against Palace when he came on, and I think Pogba wasn't on it. So maybe Fernandes deeper and seeing how that rotates might be a good idea against Luton. On the wings, Greenwood and Daniel James. Daniel James on the left. Again, seeing Rashford get rested, put Daniel James on his preferred side, and then up front, Odion Ighalo. Yeah,
it's a strong squad. Obviously, Mengi in there as well. We'll have a look. We'll sort of have a look at all of our squads, and then we'll sort of discuss who we think we're going to see. So, Alex, let's see your squad next.
Okay, so I've gone for, again, Dean Henderson in goal. Excuse me. Like Casey said, I think he's going to be our cup goalkeeper, but I wouldn't be surprised if he plays some Premier League games. I think he's going to push De Gea this season. I think there'll be a bit more rotation, unlike how Romero's been treated. I think Wan-Bissaka on the right, I think he needs the minutes. Having not played at the weekend, I think he needs to get some time under the belt.
I'm not entirely sure why he didn't play, are you?
I think it's probably to do with the quarantine from Dubai. I think he had to go. He went to Dubai, which meant he had to take an extra week off than everyone else, and I just don't think he was quite there. So I think it'd be a good game to get him 90 minutes back in. Buying Mengi, that's kind of pie in the sky. I don't kind of I'd like that to happen. I think they both need time, but I think that Harry Maguire will play. Harry Maguire's probably going to play ahead of one of them. Brandon Williams at left back, I don't think that's. I think he'll definitely play. Midfield, I've gone for Fred and McTominay. I think McTominay had a good game. Thought he was out of the starters at the weekend. I think he was probably the better of all the players. I think he put a good shift in. And I want to see that Fred and McTominay pairing again because I want to see Van der Beek again in the number 10. Another one that I want to see get 90 minutes. Didn't play too much at the weekend. And then front three is a bit of a... I've gone Dan James, Igalo and Jesse Lingard. And it doesn't sound very good, to be honest. But I think it really doesn't sound that good. But I think that Mason Greenwood not starting last weekend, I think it kind of showed that he needs to be starting every Premier League game. Yeah. So I think that this means that I think he'll get 90 minutes. I think he'll come on from the start against Brighton. I think Martial and Rashford both need a rest. But again, wouldn't be surprised to see either Martial or Rashford in there in place of either Igalo or even Jesse Lingard potentially.
And then my team finally, if we bring that one up, it's a bit different to yours actually. I've got Henderson in the net. I think again we can all agree that he's going to be the cup goalie, isn't he? Yep. And like I said, maybe more even. It's one of those seasons where we saw it with Leno and Petr Cech at Arsenal a couple of years ago, where it was like he's the second choice goalie at the moment, Leno, but with a view to maybe taking over, so he might get a few more minutes than your traditional second choice goalkeeper. I've gone Wan-Bissaka. I've gone by Maguire because Solskjaer kind of insinuated last season that Maguire's going to play pretty much every game he's fit. He played 50 games, I think, last season. So, unless he is just not fit, then I think Maguire will play, as I think you agreed as well, Casey. I've gone by as well because he was praising Bailly, saying how strong he looks in training, how he's back to fitness and is impressing everyone. So I think we might see Bailly start a game. Brandon Williams as well. And then I've gone Van der Beek and Fred as my deep two there. I think we're all predicting Van der Beek to start. And I think Fred could do with some minutes as well, obviously. Didn't start against Crystal Palace. Then I've gone Lingard because, actually on the right, I've gone Greenwood because, again, probably could do with some minutes. Looked pretty sharp against Palace, but didn't quite get a chance to do much. I've gone Lingard at the 10. I think we might see a little shot window for Lingard. I think he's clearly on that list of people who is allowed to leave if a bid comes in. And we've seen it in the past with Smalling and Ashley Young and certain people where they sort of play a couple of games and then leave straight away after, like they've still got it, they've still got a bit in the tank, kind of just sort of showing him off a little bit. Juan Mata as well on the left hand side. I think that front three there, or the sort of the three behind the striker, Greenwood, Lingard and Mata, will be quite a fluid. One drifting out to the right, drifting out to the left, kind of cutting inside. I think that I've put them in that formation at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if Greenwood comes off the left or Lingard pushes out to that left-hand side, and then Odi and Igalo, who we can all agree on there. There's a few talking points I want to go over. Dean Henderson is the first one. Are you thinking that, as I mentioned there, that this is a sort of a season to transition him to be the first choice goalkeeper, or do you just think at the moment it is De Gea's number one, Henderson's number two?
I think it could be probably tested now and again. I think that potentially, I think he could play maybe some Champions League games, depending on which would mean that he'd get a few more games than
sort of more like 15, 20,
more than 15, 20, more than the 7 or 8 of the cup, than the other cup games. So potentially, I don't know. It's a strange one. It's a strange one to sign someone with such a big contract and have them as our second choice. That was kind of where I didn't know what Henderson was going to do, and this is maybe a bit of a risk for Ollie bringing him in and him not playing a full season. Because I think that he probably could do the experience still. Because I think next season he should be potentially looking at being number one for Manchester United.
Do you think that contract then that Alex mentioned there was almost like we're going to give you this money to prove to you how much we value you, even though you're going to be, De Gea's going to start the league games, certainly, against Crystal Palace he did, but we're giving you, 120, 150 grand a week he's just been given. That is us showing you we think you're good enough to be Manchester United's first choice keeper. Give us a season or maybe 2 seasons to bring you through.
Well, I think that's sort of United's angle on it, because there was obviously some rumours of Chelsea being interested, Sheffield United wanting him back. Sort of there was a load of interest around him, and what you were saying, it's a bit weird to give him that contract but send the bench, but then also it's weird that De Gea's on like 300k a week and then we see him on the bench. It's a bit of an awkward situation in there. But I feel like Dean Henderson, I think we offered him the contract because I think he backs himself. he backs himself that he knows that if De Gea makes a mistake, he's not going to let him slide back. Like he's not going to let him go, oh, I'll have one game and then let you have a rest, have one game. As soon as he comes in, he'll be like, well, I want this position now. You have to come back in and try and fight for it. So I think that's the sort of thing, the contract, kind of that thing between Dean Henderson and Man United of meeting of minds that in a couple of seasons, you'll be first choice, but in your head, there is a possibility that you could be first choice within 6 months. Yeah, if he forces his way in and if De Gea continues to make mistakes the way he has, I won't be surprised to see Henderson come through more quickly. Collins on Yim there with his team. He's gone Henderson, Mensah, Bailly, Maguire, Shaw, Fred McTominay, Van der Beek, Mata, Igalo, Lingard. He says this is the fittest squad we have. Same squad as Saturday, and we will be battered 2-0. What do you think in terms of the team that we saw Saturday? Obviously, we've all picked like sort of very rotated squads compared to the game against Palace. Do you think that team is just tired? Do you think there's a mental aspect, like I mentioned with Luke Shaw coming out and explicitly saying we need to sign players? That's very unusual. There seems to be some sort of mental block or, certainly annoyance or a lack of confidence at least, isn't there, at the moment in that first team?
I don't think it's tired. I think it's probably the other way. I think it's lack of sharpness, to be honest. Ollie mentioned in his press conference after the game, he said he spoke to Hodgson and they'd had 4 pre-season games and had played 2 competitive games and then had that game. Yeah. Whereas United have just played Villa. They haven't had any other games than that. Yeah. And I think that's what showed. So I think that players need 90 minutes under the belt, and I think that they need to get a bit of confidence back, which is, for as much as we've all rotated, it wouldn't be surprised to see maybe even players like Paul Pogba given an hour or the end of the game, 30 minutes, depending on how things go, to get him back into it. Wouldn't be surprised to see you put Bruno in your team. Wouldn't be surprised to see him because he looked a bit, wouldn't say sluggish, but he just didn't look as sharp as he was towards the end of last season. I think there's a couple of them players, especially midfielders, that need to get back into the rhythm of things. I feel
like Pogba, when that first game of the season, looked a bit unmotivated. He looked a bit off the ball. It was that sort of problems that we had later on in last season, where like he was getting his pocket picked. He just didn't seem to pay attention to people around him. He was doing his own thing. And I think that's the reason he should probably be dropped for this game, just for the sense of, against a team like Luton who are going, well, this is all or nothing for us. We don't care whether we get beaten 3-0. If we win or we lose. It's not a situation of United where there's embarrassment if they give us a game, there's embarrassment or whatever. So I don't think putting in someone in, we're not sure about whether he's quite there at this point. But someone like Fernandes and Maguire and stuff like that, the reason I think they'll get played is because you see in every game they care about whether people are minute by minute, not in the whole 90 minutes, like minute by minute. If you're not trying, you'll have Fernandes and Maguire yelling at you to get playing. And I feel like having that motivation, especially earlier on in the season, is definitely vital to getting everyone back up to
You mentioned transfers then, and the feeling at the moment is it feels very much like the end of Mourinho's reign, that kind of start of that season, where there's murmurs that he wants players, and there's murmurs that now Mourinho was coming out slagging off the squad and doing things like that. Ollie's not done that. Ollie's been tried to be professional and positive towards all this. But I think that you can just see that if towards that end of that transfer window, if we'd have got Maguire that transfer window, I think the team would have had a bit of a lift. There's a bit more confidence, and I think that's the same thing with Sancho this summer, or someone along that ilk. I think if we get a couple of those players across the line, I think everyone will kind of get that lift. I've mentioned it before, and it happened with Chelsea in just before lockdown. They were on a bad run of form. They went into lockdown. They came back out of it, and just because they got 2 signings in, the form got back up because the rest of the squad went, we're gonna have a good team next year. We're gonna have Werner, we're gonna have Ziyech, and that's before everything's done. I think that United need that lift of everyone knows that they're being backed, that the manager's being backed, and that they've got something to play for. Because at the minute, these guys are kind of thinking, if I get injured or he gets injured, we're in real trouble. I mean,
you hit the nail on the head with Luke Shaw coming out and saying it. Like, the most nailed on, or like the most talked about transfer, or the one that's given the most thing, is his position, and he's the one saying, well, we need to get people in. Like, you can't really, if the person who's like, well, I might lose my starting position, is like, we need more players, then you can kind of have to be like, well, maybe we do.
Yeah. Maybe. I think we definitely do. Jay Holmes there on Facebook saying, why do players need a rest? They've had a month off, played 2 games, they need game time and get into a flow of footy. Yeah, I agree with that.
I kind of agree.
Some players need a rest, some players need minutes in their legs. Yeah. Some players need to get back to fitness. Like you said, they've had a month off, so they've probably lost a bit of sharpness.
The one we've not mentioned is none of us have put Victor Lindelof in our teams. Yeah. obviously had a very bad game against Palace at the weekend. The reason I've gone for Bailly and for Mengi is I think that this is kind of a let's see how these two do kind of thing. If they can step up and put a good performance in, I could see them taking his spot, one of them two, or even and Twanzebe coming back in. I think someone's going to be pushing Victor Lindelof, and I think they need to because at the minute he looks very comfortable in there, and comfortable in terms of I'm going to start, but not comfortable in terms of playing football at the minute at all.
He was poor against Palace, wasn't he? Lindelof, he was at fault for certainly 2 of the goals, maybe even the first goal as well.
I mean the penalty I can admit like. He has his arm.
He was unlucky,
but there's no way a player can anticipate a chip from there. There's nothing like you can do about it. So I can maybe give him away, but in terms of the other 2 goals, I'm like fuming at.
Yeah. The first one, I think stopping the cross should have been. He should have stopped the cross, but I also would put Luke Shaw a bit of blame as well at the back post. But it was a bad game.
That one where Zaha completely shrugs him off, and you're there like, how? Like you
just giving him space to take an unblocked shot on the edge of the box. Was that in your mind then, sort of looking at a Lindelof replacement when you brought your centre backs in?
Oh, 100%, because it's not just the fact that Lindelof's made the mistakes. I've never understood why we play both Lindelof and Maguire. The reason we haven't done it is we don't have the centre back that does the opposite. But the reason that people always have a go at Maguire and look like, oh, Maguire's getting caught out is because if you have 2 centre backs who played the same, that one of them, if you had Maguire on his right hand side with Wan-Bissaka, it wouldn't look as bad because he'd have Wan-Bissaka covering and he wouldn't have to step out as much and stuff like that. But we need to look at centre backs, especially because we have Twanzebe, we have Mengi in the youth team who are athletic, and we've had there's been rumours of transfers of what we're looking at. Is that centre back who, if Maguire steps out and then he leaves a gap because he gets beaten, someone can come in and actually come behind him and not
cover him.
And not Lindelof, where they both make the exact same push and then can't get back. And that's what we saw against Southampton. We saw it against Palace, and Southampton were doing it against Tottenham, and you see other like low league teams doing it where they just play it in behind because they know they're going to try and play high lines to play it out, and it just ruins us, especially when we don't have like a Wan-Bissaka on.
So, I mean, first of all, I think he was terrible at the weekend, and it's clear that the club are looking for some sort of replacement for Lindelof. Yep. I do think that when you say why did Lindelof and Maguire play together so much, I think they did concede 30 less goals than last season. I think it's easy to slag them off and pick the mistakes that they made. It was massively improved on the season before. Most of that I would say down to Maguire, but still I don't think Lindelof was shit all season personally.
No.
We've got a super chat from Fiery but mostly peaceful. It's a lack of fitness due to poor coaching and players not taking responsibility for their fitness. Also, if Pogba doesn't care, he has to go. Simple. That's thanks for the super chat there. We'll start with the first point and move on to the second point. Do you blame the Ole, or do you blame the players, or do you blame both, or do you blame coronavirus, or what do you put that? Again, we're talking a lot about the Palace game, but we obviously have to because it sets the tone for how important this Luton game is.
I think the one thing we need to see is that we've not seen City play yet, and they're in the same position as us, where they've only played 1 pre-season game and come into this. Let's see how they do tonight, because I think that we're basing this on the other Premier League teams who have had a better preparation than us, and I think we've spoken about this a bit. This fact that we've got this extra week rest after having 2 or 3 weeks in the extra than everyone else in the Europa League, I don't think it's going to help us at all. I think if anything, it hinders us. I think we've got to catch this game up later on down the line, and we're also. Everyone else last week was leggy. It was both games. Yeah, it was. All the games last week.
Like, look at that Liverpool Leeds game. Everyone was like mistakes everywhere.
All over the place.
Trent heading it into his own net. Van Dijk controlling it like my dad on the beach. Yeah. Like, everyone looks slow and sluggish and full of mistakes. And then they've kind of sharpened up in that week, and that game's done everyone well. And then United come in and look poor. According to the MEN, Dean Henderson, of course, has been informed that he is down to start in United's first cup tie of the new season at Kenilworth Road. Henderson and his family are said to be buzzing about his first appearance for United. So that's confirmed all of our predictions there. Apparently, again, according to the MEN, Dean Henderson will be starting tomorrow. The second point that guy made there, Casey, was that Paul Pogba, you mentioned it before, he was very poor, wasn't he? Giving the ball away a lot, and he had that sort of... The problem with him is when he's having a bad game, it's not like... there's some players like Ander Herrera, when he had a bad game, he'd overrun the ball and he'd sprint after people and he'd foul people and he'd go after it. Like Wayne Rooney, same thing. Yeah. There was never a doubt about his effort. The thing with Paul Pogba is because of his style, because he's so imperious and sort of chest out, pushing people out the way, kind of. When that goes wrong, and you look like you think you're the dog's bollocks, which he does, and he is mostly, but you're giving the ball away. It does have that feeling of just sort of petulance or a little bit of like I'm not bothered.
He tries to overcompensate. Like if he starts getting tackled from behind, he always tries to over dribble it or try and beat the man that tried to tackle him, and then it just never seems to work. It never seems to work because he just kind of he gets frustrated and then he starts taking shots from stupid angles and stuff like when we saw him in that after post lockdown sort of thing. He was kind of distributing around the box. He was trying to find the best player for the shot and everything, and he was playing it like you sort of deep line playmaker. But against Palace, you saw that the longer the match went on, the longer he was on the pitch. He was just booting it. He was trying to boot it through about 6 players. I feel like he's one of those players that he's very good when he's on the right mentality and stuff, but he can get put off his game quite easily. And maybe this fact that he's not had the pre-season, he's not had the sort of bedding in, and we did rotate the midfield.
And he's had coronavirus about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, this is something
I think it's very unfair on him as well that the whole like he has one bad game and now you better leave. Then.
This is
like he was
so
good
after it's not a sense lockdown. It's not a sense of he has to leave. The fact is he just
that's what the comments.
Yeah, so I mean, but it's just a sense of he needs to take a couple of games, maybe bring when Matic comes back in as well, and set that midfield back up and sort of thing. And
I blame Ollie for that one. You know, no one I don't think in this office predicted that Pogba would start because. You know, coming off coronavirus, you don't know how someone's going to react. Obviously, he's looked better in training, and they wouldn't put someone in there if the numbers weren't good on the fitness stuff. But for me, he's had that coronavirus. He's probably only been in training for a week. It was a no-go for me, especially when you've signed someone. The whole argument for signing Donny van de Beek was not to replace Pogba, was not to replace Bruno Fernandes. No. It was to come in, and when they needed a break, give it to them. And that's what Pogba for me. You needed another week off. And then maybe you bring him in, maybe he plays an hour this week. And now no one's had him in this team. I think he maybe needs another rest. And then he's coming into the game at the weekend.
It was so strange when you had like Van der Beek obviously been signed. You had Freddie worked so well with McTominay.
Van der Beek as well, who had played in the pre-season friendly, and Pogba who hadn't.
And then also you had Fred that played well with McTominay last season. He was available. And then but the thing is, the other thing that confused me as well was he rested Wan-Bissaka for the exact same reason. Not because obviously he had the virus, but because he quarantined and not played with the team. So I don't understand where the mentality was. Maybe he thought that if without Pogba we'd lose the control of midfield, but then there's not putting any reliance in the new signing if you do that. But I'm not sure.
Aaron Quinn there saying bring in the young hungry youngsters, Williams, Galbraith, and Mengi as well. Would you tend to agree with that? I know you've got Mengi in your squad.
I've had Mengi and Williams. Definitely have them in, and we've just had a donation from.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, it's miles away from me. Margaret Singh.
Manpreet Singh Aurora, thank you very much for your super chat. Again, it's going to be a difficult balance, this one, isn't it? Between resting players who. Not resting players, but sort of giving the young lads a chance against the Championship side. But also, as we keep saying, they're third in the Championship. They've won the first 2 matches. We have to win the game. And our players probably need minutes more than they need a rest.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of think that maybe some of our 11s, I think maybe even Martial potentially could start. And I wouldn't kind of blame him. For whatever team comes out tomorrow, you can see the argument both sides. Whether he puts a full strength time out and just goes, do you know what, let's just win this competition. Or let's make sure we get through this tournament.
Yeah.
And the other side is your rest players. That could be a definite option.
Yeah, that's going to be all from us. Like I said, don't be surprised to see Martial, Greenwood, maybe not Pogba, but certainly Bruno and that kind of.
Got the results of our poll before we go.
Before we go, let's get the result of our poll on Facebook. We're doing more of these recently, so make sure you get involved on Facebook as well. If you don't follow us on Facebook, go to Stretford Paddock there, and we will. We do loads of streams on Facebook as well, and we do these polls and stuff, so you can get involved on there.
So we've got
will Manchester United beat Luton Town is the poll.
Yes, 58% not sure, 27% no, 15%.
So that's what 42% of people don't think we're going to win against Luton, or they're not certain that we'll win. It just goes to show the lack of confidence amongst the fan base at the moment, doesn't it? We will be here tomorrow, of course, for all the pre-match stuff, for the watch-along and for the review. But tonight as well, we have our first ever Stretford Paddock phone-in over at XS Manchester with Joe McGrath and myself. So we're going to be getting out all the details for that, so you can call in, you can ask us questions about the game tomorrow, you can talk to us about the game that we saw on Saturday. So that will be coming up live tonight from 7 p.m. Thank you very much for joining me, Casey. Thank you very much for joining me, Alex.
Cheers,
be sure to tune in tonight as well at 4 o'clock for Howson's Brew. We'll see you in a bit.